Sometimes life's most incredible miracles begin with the simplest, quietest acts of compassion. A struggling single father, a pregnant woman in distress, and one selfless decision would intertwine their fates forever. He never sought recognition, never expected a reward. And yet, what unfolded just hours later was beyond his wildest dreams. This is not just a tale of survival, it's a journey of hope, of healing, and of how the smallest gestures of goodness can grow into something truly life-changing. If you believe in the power of kindness and in the magic of unexpected love, you've found the right place. Subscribe now for more touching stories just like this one. The morning had begun like any other for Liam Carter. His alarm buzzed at 6 a.m., but he was already awake. He often woke before the sun, not by choice, but by necessity. Years of balancing night shifts, day jobs, and raising his daughter alone had trained his body to survive on very little sleep. Rest had become a forgotten luxury. As he lay on his creaky mattress, a sliver of soft winter light slipped through threadbare curtains. The old radiator clanked in the corner, offering little warmth. He reached for the one thing that still brought him peace, a photo of Elena, his late wife, smiling as she held baby Maya. "Morning, love," he whispered, like he did every day. With a deep breath, he sat up, every muscle sore from yesterday's labour. He'd repaired a collapsed gutter just for some groceries. His hands were cracked and rough from the cold. Then came the sound that warmed his soul. A tiny giggle from the hallway. Maya. In the living room, she sat before the space heater, trying to tie a ribbon around their scruffy cat, Buttons. The cat looked unamused. "Morning, Snow Warrior," Liam said, ruffling her hair. "Dad, Buttons is a princess today. She needs her crown." "Oh, remind me to knight her after breakfast," he replied, chuckling. He moved into the kitchen, where shelves were almost bare. Still, there was just enough oatmeal for today. As he stirred, he glanced at the calendar. Rent due in 3 days. Bills unpaid. He served breakfast at their wobbly table. "Do you think I can write a book one day?" Maya asked mid-bite. He looked at her, his heart full. "I think you'll write 100 books. Just don't forget to dedicate the first one to your #1 fan." "To Dad, the fixer of all things," she beamed. After breakfast, Liam bundled her in a donated coat, scarf wrapped twice around. She looked like a little marshmallow. "Stay warm. Don't let the kingdom fall," he smiled. "The Snow Kingdom is under my protection," she said, wielding her imaginary sword. He dropped her off at school, kneeling at the gate. "Hot chocolate later?" he asked. "Promise?" "Promise." He watched her go, his little warrior. Then it was off to work. A widow's broken basement window needed patching. Not much pay, but enough to feed them for a few more days. He worked for hours in freezing cold. By the end, he was numb, exhausted. Still, the widow handed him a warm coffee, some cash and cookies. "You remind me of my late husband," she said. "Take care of that daughter of yours." Driving back, Liam stared at Maya's drawing taped to the dashboard, just the two of them, hand in hand under a rainbow. But then everything changed. On the outskirts of town, he saw her, a pregnant woman, alone, next to a stalled SUV, in the snow, waving desperately while cars passed her by. He stopped. "Are you okay?" he asked. Her voice trembled. "Something's wrong, my baby, I need help, please." Without a second thought, he helped her into his truck. She stumbled. He caught her. "I got you, you're safe." But then a sound, a screech, tires, a truck too fast, skidding, headlights blinding. "Move!" he shouted. He shoved her aside hard. She tumbled into the snow, and Liam was hit. Time froze, pain tore through him. Then darkness, blood pooled around him. Snowflakes fell silently, like the sky was weeping. The woman screamed, crawled to him, tried to call for help. Miles away, Maya waited, eyes on the school gate. Her dad had promised hot chocolate, but he wasn't there. Liam's recovery and internal struggles. Liam in the hospital. The scent of antiseptic hangs in the air, cold, clinical, and unmistakable. Liam's eyelids begin to flutter open, heavy with sedation. Above him, a sterile white ceiling greets his bleary eyes. Slowly it comes into focus. He blinks, disoriented, unsure. Then the reality settles in. Pain surges through his back, through his legs. His body, foreign and bruised, aches in ways it never has before. The accident, it shouldn't have happened, but it did. Now Liam lies still, surrounded by the soft hum of machines and the distant footsteps of nurses. He reaches out, fingers trembling, to the edges of the hospital sheet. The fabric is cool, the touch is real. A slow pain radiates from his ribs, proof that he's still alive, barely. A fragment of memory flickers. He was driving, in a hurry. There was a woman, pregnant, crying, in his arms, lifeless, fragile. The sound of her voice, the panic in her eyes, they're burned into his memory, though everything else is a blur, the car, the blood, the screams. It plays like a broken record in his mind. He wants to forget, but he can't. Flashback to Elena's death. There was another time, another tragedy, one that tore his soul in half. A year ago, Elena's funeral. Liam hadn't been the same since. He sat in the front pew, clutching little Maya's hand, trying to be strong, but unraveling inside. Elena had been his partner, his light, her laugh, her love for Maya, her warmth. Now gone, like dust in the wind. He remembers the call. A car crash, no goodbyes, no second chances. Maya was too young to understand. Every night she would ask, "Where's Mommy?" And every night Liam would answer through tears, "Mommy's in heaven." But heaven felt too far away. Life after loss, raising Maya alone. Maya grew up without her mother, and far too quickly. At just 10, she was wise beyond her years. She saw everything. The exhaustion in Liam's eyes, the nights he cried behind a closed door, the way he clung to a picture frame before sleep, the grief, it lingered, always with them, even in joy. But Maya's laughter, it could pierce through the darkness like a ray of sunlight. And for Liam, that was everything. That was hope. But now he was back in a hospital bed, broken again, and he wondered, was he about to lose everything? The pain of physical recovery. A gentle knock. The door creaks open. A nurse enters, adjusting his IV. Her voice is kind, her eyes concerned. "How are you feeling, Mr. Daniels?" Liam tries to sit up. Pain grabs hold of his spine, forcing him back down. "I've been better," he whispers. "You've been through a lot," she says, "but you're healing." He turns his gaze to the window. Sunlight filters through the blinds, golden, distant, and still he feels alone. So much to fix, so many pieces left scattered. "You're going to be okay," she assures him. But he's heard that before. It rarely felt true. Still, for Maya's sake, he needed to believe it. He had to keep going. The haunting of the accident, but the woman from the crash, she wouldn't leave his mind. Her face blurred, but her eyes, they mirrored Elena's in her final moments. Fear. Desperation. He had saved her, hadn't he? He wasn't sure. What if he hadn't? Guilt clawed at his chest. "I should have done more," he muttered. Maya. Her face appeared in his thoughts like a flash of light. He couldn't leave her, not like Elena had left them. Then the door creaked open once more, and there she was. Maya, tiny in the doorway, eyes wide, clutching a stuffed bear, Elena's old one. "Dad," she whispered, her voice like a lighthouse in his storm. "Maya," he croaked. She climbed gently into the bed, resting her head on his chest. "I was so scared, Dad," she whispered. "I thought I was going to lose you, too." He held her tight, his hand stroking her hair. "I'm right here, kiddo," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." But even he wasn't sure. She looked up. Who are those people outside? They looked different. His heart skipped. Luxury cars, unfamiliar faces. They had been watching, waiting. "I don't know, sweetheart," he replied, steadying his voice, "but I'll figure it out." For her, he would. No matter how broken he felt inside, no matter how steep the road ahead. Liam knew this. The world had taken enough from him. Now it was his turn to fight back, for healing, for truth, for Maya, for the life they still had left. The mystery unfolds. The luxury cars outside. After Maya's question, Liam's mind began to race again. Who were these people, and why were they here? He hadn't even had time to process his own situation, let alone make sense of the growing mystery unfolding outside his hospital room. Luxury cars parked silently along the street near his home. Expensive, sleek, blacked out, the kind of vehicles you only ever saw in films, or when someone truly important was near. And then Liam's heart skipped a beat. A flicker of fear crept in. Had they seen the hospital's security footage? Could it have revealed something he wasn't supposed to know? Or perhaps these strangers were connected to the pregnant woman he had saved. Even as his body screamed for rest, Liam's curiosity refused to let go. He shifted against the weight of the hospital bed, pain lighting up every nerve. He winced, then lay back again, the sensation sharp. Still, his mind kept reaching, grasping, trying to hold on to something, slipping through his fingers. "Maya, I need you to stay close, okay?" His voice was hoarse, concern wrapped in every word. Don't leave my side, and don't talk to anyone outside this room. Maya looked at him, her brow furrowed, worry blooming in her eyes. Who are those people, Dad? Why are they here? But Liam had no answers. He wanted to reassure her, to calm her. But deep inside, he felt it, that gut-deep knowing something was wrong. Minutes stretched. Time felt like molasses, slow, thick, uncertain. And then the door creaked open again. But it wasn't a nurse. A man stepped inside. Dark suit, clean cut. Expressionless, but his eyes, they held something else, something sharp, intense. Liam's pulse quickened. This man wasn't a doctor, and he certainly wasn't law enforcement. Mr. Daniels? His voice was low, measured, controlled. I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Immediately, Liam was on edge. This didn't feel right. I'm not in the mood for any more surprises today, he muttered. Who are you? The man didn't react. He stepped forward, gaze scanning the room, until it settled on Maya. You should probably let your daughter go with the nurse for a while, Mr. Daniels. What I have to discuss is sensitive. Liam hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. But then he saw Maya clutching her stuffed animal, her eyes wide, watching. She needed space. A moment away from this. Okay, Maya, Liam said softly. You go with the nurse, all right? I'll be fine. She nodded slowly. And just like that, she was gone. Now it was just Liam and the stranger. The man sat beside the bed, folded his hands, and then he said it. You're in danger. Liam's body tensed, his voice cracked. What do you mean? Who are you? The stranger leaned forward. Let's just say I'm someone who knows more about your situation than you might expect. And then, the car accident, what you don't know is that you weren't just saving a random pregnant woman that day. Liam's mind reeled. I didn't save her because I knew she was pregnant. I saw her. I helped her. You saved her. The man's voice was colder now, because she's important, very important. The identity of the woman. Liam's confusion grew. What do you mean? Who was she? Elena Moretti. The words dropped like stone. And she's not just any woman, Mr. Daniels. She's connected to a very powerful family. They've been watching you since the moment you saved her life. The name echoed in Liam's mind. Moretti. He'd heard it before. Business, politics, power. The kind of family that didn't overlook anything. I don't understand, Liam whispered. I just helped her. That's exactly why you're in danger, the man said, his voice steady. You have no idea who you're dealing with. The Moretti family doesn't let debts go unpaid, and the moment you saved her, you became part of a much larger story. Liam's gut feeling. Something deep inside Liam churned. This was no longer about a car accident or a kind gesture. This was bigger. Much, much bigger. The cars, the stranger, the tension in the room. Everything pointed to a storm on the horizon. But Liam couldn't afford to panic. He had to protect Maya. He had to stay strong. I don't care about their family, he said, finding his voice. I just want to get better. I didn't do this for recognition. The man nodded. But you're already in the thick of this. You can't back out now. And with those words, reality shifted again. The past, once simple, was now entangled with secrets. The present, once quiet, now heavy with consequence. The whisper of the family's power. Then came the final blow. The Morettis will be watching you, Mr. Daniels, and you'll soon realize nothing in your life is as simple as it seems. The man stood up, walked toward the door, and just before stepping out, he turned. I suggest you don't make any moves without consulting me first. His voice was like ice. Because things are going to get much worse before they get better. And then he was gone. Liam lay there, alone, his mind spinning, his heart pounding, and the silence in the room now filled with more questions than ever before. The twist, past revealed, the unexpected visitor. The next few hours passed in a haze for Liam. His injuries throbbed with relentless pain. But it was not just the physical pain that consumed him. There was something else, something heavier. A creeping unease that refused to let go. The conversation he had with the mysterious man in the suit echoed in his mind like a distant drumbeat. The Moretti family. Why them? Why him? He had no answers, only questions that multiplied with each passing second. And then there was a knock. Not from the door, but a shift in presence. Another unexpected visitor stepped into the room. She was tall, impeccably dressed in a black suit, dark eyes, sharply defined features, a presence carved from stone, cold and precise. Liam didn't need a name. He knew. This wasn't just someone from the outside. She was Moretti. "Mr. Daniels," she said, voice calm and chillingly composed, "I trust you've been informed about your situation." Liam shifted painfully, sitting up in bed. His eyes locked on hers, guarded. "I don't know who you are, and I don't care." A flicker of a smile, barely visible, like she'd expected that. "I understand your frustration, but this isn't about what you want to know. It's about what you need to understand. What we need from you is urgent." He clenched his jaw. "What do you want from me?" She stepped closer, her gaze steady and piercing. "I'm here to inform you about your past, Mr. Daniels, specifically your connection to the Moretti family." Liam's heart skipped. "My past? What are you talking about? I have nothing to do with your family." Her lips curled ever so slightly. "That's where you're mistaken. You may not remember, but we've been watching you for a very long time. The connection to the Moretti family." The words hit Liam like a freight train. No, it couldn't be. His life, his reality, had been ordinary, grounded. He had scraped through days, working thankless jobs, raising his daughter with everything he had, alone. The world she spoke of, power, control, influence, it felt galaxies away. "I don't remember any of this," he said, his voice low, defensive. "I've never had anything to do with your family." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "That's because you've forgotten. But we'll remind you. Your father, Liam, he was a part of something bigger. Something connected to us. The Moretti network, you're part of that story, whether you like it or not." Liam's thoughts spun. His father? A ghost from stories, a shadow, gone before Liam had memory. He had always thought his father was just gone. Not a criminal, not connected. Not this. "You're lying," Liam snapped. "My father, he wasn't part of anything like this." She didn't even blink. "You've been lied to your whole life. Your father was a key player. And when he passed, the debts didn't die with him. They became your inheritance." Liam felt his stomach turn. "What debt?" he asked, voice barely steady. The woman's tone softened, but only slightly. "A deal, made to protect you, your mother. But deals with the Morettis don't vanish, they wait." She stepped forward, as if her words could not afford distance. "Your father died. The debt lived on, and when you saved Elena Moretti's life, you reopened a door that had never truly closed." Liam's world began to crumble. Everything he had done, every sacrifice, every moment, suddenly felt orchestrated by a past he never knew, a trap he had been born into. "You're telling me," he said, his voice cracked with disbelief, "that I've been living in debt to your family, and didn't even know it?" "Yes," she said simply, "and now that debt must be paid." "The choice." Silence fell. Then she continued. Her voice was clear, final. "You now have a choice, Mr. Daniels. You can repay what your father owed, join the family, help us with our operations, or—" She let the moment breathe, the weight of the or lingered in the air. "Or you can refuse, and we'll ensure you regret that decision." Liam sat there, frozen. The walls closed in. Everything he knew, his truth, his peace, his freedom, was gone. But in his heart, one name remained, Maya. He couldn't let this darkness touch her. Ever. "I don't want anything to do with your family," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just a man trying to survive." Her eyes narrowed slightly, cold again, calculating. "You've made your choice," she said, "but understand this, if you don't work with us, we will make your life a living hell." And just like that, she turned and walked out, leaving Liam alone with his thoughts, with his fears, and with the truth. The rising tension. Liam struggled to understand. After the woman left, the silence in the hospital room became deafening. Only the slow, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor reminded Liam that time was still moving forward. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, casting a cold, sterile glow against the stark white walls and metal fixtures. Liam sat, motionless, his body propped up by stiff hospital pillows, but inside his thoughts churned like a storm beneath a deceptively calm sea. The air around him felt heavier now, each breath burdened with the weight of what he had just learned. He stared at the door she had walked out of, almost willing her to return. To say it had all been a mistake, a misunderstanding. But deep down, he knew. It was real. Too many things had never made sense, too many questions left unanswered, about his father, about the gaps in his childhood, about the eerie feeling long ago that someone had always been watching him. Now it all added up, with a clarity that was chilling. Liam Daniels was no longer just a single father trying to make ends meet. He was the son of a man entangled in the hidden empire of the Moretti family, a legacy of silence, a web not broken, only hidden. His mind raced backward to fleeting memories of his mother, beautiful, tired, always on edge. She had never spoken of his father. Whenever Liam asked, she'd look away or say softly, "It's better not to dwell on the past." As a child, he'd accepted that. As a man, it now felt like betrayal. How could she keep this from me? The words escaped his mouth like breath itself. Pain flared in his ribs as he reached for a cup of water, a reminder of the bruises, but they were nothing compared to the wound, now bleeding within. Everything he believed in, his childhood, his past, his very identity, might have been a lie. A life carefully crafted to keep the truth from him. His hand trembled, not from pain, but from the weight of losing control. He was caught in something vast, ancient, dangerous. And worst of all, personal. He thought of Maya, her joy, her laughter, her innocence. She was his world, and now that world had a crack running straight through it. One wrong move and it would all shatter. He inhaled slowly, deeply, focused. Maya needed him. The mysterious offer. But one question haunted him. Why now? Why did the Moretti family wait until now to come forward? Was this the result of his heroic act? Saving Elena Moretti's life? Had they been watching? Waiting? Liam knew this much. Powerful people never move without a reason. And Elena, who was she really? Yes, he had saved her, not knowing her name, not knowing her legacy, just a stranger in need. But now that stranger might be the key to the chains around his life. Was she a pawn, or the one moving pieces? He didn't want to believe she had been sent, that everything had been orchestrated. But doubt had taken root. His stubbled hand rubbed across his face, as if trying to wipe away the confusion. He needed answers, real answers. But those who could give them, they were long gone, ghosts in the dark. All he had now were fragments, a stranger's cryptic words, a woman's cold professionalism, the mention of a debt left behind by a man he never truly knew. And now an ultimatum, join or regret it. He hated being cornered. And then the realization chilled him. They had been watching for years, in the grocery store. Outside Maya's school, on lonely walks at night, he had ignored the feeling, labelled it trauma, but now he saw it for what it was. "They've been watching me for years," he muttered. Knock, knock. A sharp sound at the door snapped him back. His body tensed, pulse spiked. He stared at the door. Another knock. "Who is it?" he called cautiously. A nurse peeked in. "Just your medication, Mr. Daniels." Relief, sharp and temporary. But suspicion lingered. Even this moment felt off. He took the pills, swallowed them, and stared into the silence. The tension builds. Hours dragged by. The hospital around him moved like a machine, but Liam was in the eye of a storm. Every sound outside his door, every footstep set him on edge. Sleep refused to come, and when he closed his eyes, he didn't find rest. He found visions, faces, voices, places he didn't recognize. Memories or warnings? One figure appeared over and over. Tall, dark-haired, a leather jacket. Speaking in hushed tones across a table. His father. "What did you do, Dad?" Liam whispered. Maybe his father had tried to protect him. Maybe he made a deal. But whatever it was, it hadn't worked. His mother had fled. His life had been fractured. And now he was the one paying the price. Liam looked down at his hands. Scarred, calloused, strong. He had built a life of quiet, of honesty. And now it was being torn apart by truths he never chose. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a liability, a pawn, a legacy of debt. But Liam Daniels wasn't the kind to fold. In that quiet room he made a silent vow. He would uncover it all, every secret, every lie, every shadow, and he would protect Maya with everything he had, even if it meant war. The looming decision, her words rang in his ears. Join us, or regret it. What did joining mean? Crime? Loyalty? Secrecy? He didn't want it. But refusing? That could bring worse. They'd come again. Not just for him. For Maya, he couldn't let that happen. Never. He had to be smarter, patient, strategic, play their game, but on his terms. Liam leaned back slowly. "If this is the life I was born into, then fine," he whispered to the ceiling. "But I won't let it define me. I'll find my own way out, and I'll protect her, no matter what it takes." And in the shadows of that night, with the storm still raging in his soul, a new strength began to rise. Resolve. He was no longer just a man caught in someone else's story. He was ready to write his own. The pressure mounts. Liam's inner conflict. The silent suffering. Liam couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this out of control. Each time he closed his eyes, his thoughts flashed back to the hospital room, to the woman in the suit, and to her chilling words. He tried to shake off the heavy weight pressing down on him, but it lingered in the pit of his stomach like a constant reminder that the world around him was no longer the one he knew. His mind kept racing, the revelation about his father's debts echoing louder than anything else. How could he have been so blind? How could his mother have kept such a huge secret from him, a secret that had now fallen into his lap like a ticking time bomb? The choices were impossible. He couldn't just walk away from the Morettis. There would be no normal life for him or his daughter Maya. He thought about how fragile their existence had been. Every decision he had made, every small victory, had been for the sole purpose of creating a better life for Maya. Now he was faced with the impossible. The Morettis wanted him in their world. They wanted him to help them with their operations, to become a part of their ruthless empire. But Liam had made a promise to himself. He wasn't going to let his past define his future. He wasn't going to let some twisted family dictate his life or force him into their criminal world. But the woman's words haunted him. "We'll make sure you regret it." Those words were laced with menace, with the threat of losing everything he had built. If he refused, would they go after Maya? Would they take away the only thing that mattered to him? Liam couldn't afford to make the wrong choice. His hands clenched into fists as he lay there in the sterile hospital bed, the tension rising in his chest with each passing moment. As the days passed, the weight of the decision began to wear him down. He had to make a choice, one that would affect his daughter's future. But how could he protect her from the darkness that was closing in on him? How could he shield her from the world he was now entangled in? Liam had never wanted this life for her. Maya had always been the one bright light in his otherwise chaotic existence. She was the reason he had worked so hard to give her a better future. The idea of her being swept into a world of danger and corruption made his blood run cold. He thought about their last conversation, when Maya had asked him if he was okay. She could tell something was wrong, but Liam had pushed it aside, not wanting to burden her with the truth. Now, as he lay there in his hospital bed, he realized that the truth was far worse than he had imagined. His past was colliding with his present, and he had no idea how to keep Maya safe. But he couldn't run from this. Not anymore. The Morettis would find him, and if he didn't comply with their demands, the consequences would be severe. The visit from Elena Moretti, the pressure continued to mount as the days went by. Liam tried to stay focused, tried to put one foot in front of the other, but the weight of the Moretti family's shadow loomed over him at every turn. Just when he thought things couldn't get any worse, another unexpected visit came. A woman who, unlike the last one, was unmistakably familiar. Elena Moretti. Liam's heart skipped a beat when she entered his room. He had seen her once before, in the chaos of the hospital's emergency room. But now, seeing her up close, he could see the coldness in her eyes, the calculating way she moved. She was as beautiful as she was dangerous. "Elena," Liam said, his voice a mix of disbelief and caution. "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked toward the window and looked out as if contemplating her next words carefully. Liam could feel the tension in the room, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. "I'm here to make things clear," she finally said, turning toward him. "You've made your choice, Liam, but there's one thing you need to understand." He met her gaze, waiting for the inevitable. "Elena, I'm not part of this. I didn't ask for any of this," Liam said, his voice rising with a hint of desperation. "I'm just a man trying to survive. You need to leave me out of your family's business." Elena's lips curled into a smile, but it was cold, empty. "You think you have a choice?" she asked, her voice low and dangerous. "You think you can just walk away from all of this?" Liam stood up despite the pain in his body. His fists were clenched, his jaw set in defiance. "Yes, I do think I can walk away. I'm not your puppet, and I'm not going to be part of whatever twisted game you're playing." Elena's expression darkened. "You're wrong, Liam. The game has already started, and you're already in it. The moment you saved me, your life changed forever. You can't undo that. You can't just walk away from the debts your family owes." Liam's heart pounded in his chest. He took a step toward her, his eyes burning with determination. "I won't be a part of your world. I'll fight you every step of the way." Elena didn't flinch. She remained calm, almost detached. "You're not in control here. You never were. But you're smart. You'll figure that out soon enough." Before Liam could respond, Elena turned and walked out of the room without another word. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence that followed was deafening. The decision looms. Liam sat back down, his body aching from both the physical and emotional strain. He didn't know how much longer he could keep fighting. But one thing was clear. Here, he had to protect Maya. No matter what. As the days turned into weeks, the pressure continued to mount. The more he thought about his choices, the more he realized that he was running out of time. The Morettis weren't going to stop. They wouldn't let him go, not after everything that had happened. But how could he comply without putting his daughter in danger? Was there a way to fight back without losing everything he held dear? Liam's mind was a whirlwind of confusion, but one thing was certain. The clock was ticking, and the decision was looming over him. His next move would be his most important yet. The unraveling, the breaking point. Days turned into nights, and the pressure Liam had been under finally broke him. He had spent every waking moment trying to devise a plan, trying to find a way to protect Maya, and escape the Moretti's grip. But the more he thought about it, the more impossible it seemed. His hands were tied. The Morettis had too much power. They had too many resources. There was no way he could escape them without putting himself and Maya at risk. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Liam knew what he had to do, but that didn't make it any easier. The price of survival. Liam's thoughts were interrupted when his phone buzzed. It was a message from Elena. "We need to talk. Meet me at the usual place." The usual place. The words rang in Liam's head like a death knell. He knew what that meant. It was the place where everything had started, where his father's past had been revealed, where his future would be decided. The clock was ticking, and Liam knew that no matter what happened, this was it, the moment that would change everything. The moment of truth, the confrontation. Liam stood at the precipice of a world he never wanted to enter. The walls of the room seemed to close in around him, suffocating him with the weight of his family's secrets, his father's hidden debts, and the dangerous web of lies that had entangled his life. Every step he had taken to protect Maya, his daughter, had led him here. Every sacrifice had culminated in this moment. And now, as he stood face to face with Elena Moretti, and the figures who followed her, silent, ominous, their intentions unclear, he could no longer pretend he had any control over his future. The room was suffused with an unsettling silence, and Liam felt it, wrapping around him like a vice. His heart beat loudly in his chest, thumping against his ribs, as if it too was trying to escape the suffocating atmosphere. The life he had tried so hard to build, the life he thought was his, was slipping away. He had once imagined a future of normality, of peace, a future where Maya could grow up free from the shadows of her family's past. But now, the past had returned with a vengeance, and it was all he could do to stand firm in the face of it. "How far are you willing to go? To protect Maya?" Elena's voice sliced through the silence, her words laced with a cold, calculated power. She stepped forward, her heels clicking against the polished floor with each measured step, an unspoken promise of authority in her every movement. Liam's stomach clenched as her gaze locked onto him, sharp, icy. Her eyes, full of secrets and ambition, seemed to dissect him as if she could see right through to the core of his being. She had orchestrated everything, manipulated every event to bring him to this point. And now, as the question hung in the air between them, he knew he had no more answers. There was no escape. "I'll do whatever it takes," Liam replied, his voice hoarse but filled with the kind of fierce determination that only a father's love could breed. His mind was a swirl of conflicting emotions. Maya, he had always done everything for her. But this was different. This wasn't just about surviving. This was about keeping her soul intact, keeping her innocence intact. "But I won't become part of your world," he added, the words leaving his lips like a defiant pledge. The world Elena offered was one of darkness, of manipulation, of cruelty. Liam wouldn't become a part of it. Elena's lips curled into a smile, but there was no warmth in it. It was the smile of a predator, of someone who had already won. Even if the final blow hadn't yet been struck, she stepped closer, her every move a reminder of the power she wielded in this room. "It's already too late for that," she whispered, her voice thick with threat. Liam's hands clenched into fists, the muscles in his arms twitching with the urge to fight back. But there was no fight here. Not in the way he wanted. No punches could be thrown. That would erase the weight of his family's past, the choices his father had made, and the consequences that were now his to bear. Revelations about the past. As Elena's words echoed in the silence, Liam's thoughts spiraled back to everything he had learned over the past few weeks, the shattered pieces of his father's life, the debts, the dark dealings that had tied him to people like Elena. He had thought his father was just a distant figure, a man who had never truly been there for him, but the truth, now coming into focus, was far darker than he could have ever imagined. "Your father, Liam," Elena began, her tone dark and filled with mockery, "wasn't just any man. He was a key player in our world. Your family owes more than you can ever repay." The words hit Liam like a physical blow. The shock reverberated through his body as the truth slammed into him. His father, his absent, unremarkable father, had been a part of this world, the very world that now threatened to swallow him whole. His mind reeled with disbelief. How could this be true? How could the man he had once thought of as ordinary be connected to people like Elena, to the dangerous world of crime, manipulation, and betrayal? "You lied to me," Liam spat, taking a step forward, his fists clenched in anger and confusion, his chest tightened, his breath quickening. "You knew about this all along. You knew who my father was, what he was involved in." For a brief moment, there was a flicker of something in Elena's eyes, perhaps regret, perhaps guilt, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the calm, cold mask she had perfected over the years. "I'm not here to discuss your father, Liam," she replied, her voice smooth, betraying no emotion. "I'm here to show you what happens when people like you try to escape a debt they can never repay." She gestured toward one of her associates, a man who had been eerily silent up until now. He stepped forward, holding a small, inconspicuous file in his hands. Elena took it from him and slid it across the table toward Liam. "This," she said, her voice low and venomous, "is your father's legacy, his debts, his mistakes." Liam's hands shook as he picked up the file, the weight of it far heavier than its physical form. His breath caught in his throat as he opened it. The papers inside were filled with harsh, cryptic numbers, signatures that meant nothing to him, and contracts written in a language of corruption. His father had been involved in so much more than he could have imagined. Money laundering, underground deals, betrayal and deceit. The man he had thought of as a distant memory was a traitor, a man who had sold his soul for power, for wealth, or maybe just for survival. And now, those debts, those sins, were his to bear. The room seemed to shrink around him, the walls closing in, as the full weight of the truth crashed over him. His father's actions were unforgivable, but they were also inescapable. Liam had inherited the consequences of those choices, and now, standing at the heart of the storm, he had to decide what kind of man he would be. Would he continue down the same path? Would he allow himself to become what his father had been? Liam's moral struggle. The truth was overwhelming, and the guilt that followed was suffocating. Liam's mind reeled, the pieces of his life coming apart at the seams. He had never known the truth about his father, never understood why he had been so distant, so disconnected. Now, everything made sense, in the worst possible way. His father had been a coward, a man who had made deals with devils in exchange for his own survival. And now Liam was standing in the very place where those deals had been made. Anger surged through him, but it was quickly replaced by a deep, gnawing fear. The fear of what would happen to Maya. She was the only thing that mattered now. She was his reason for fighting, his reason for surviving. But how? Could he protect her from this? How could he shield her from a world that was already beginning to close in on them? Elena, sensing his internal conflict, leaned forward slightly, her eyes glinting with a dangerous amusement. "I know what you're thinking," she said, her voice low, almost soothing. "You're thinking about Maya. You want to protect her, but you should know the truth." You should know what will happen when she finds out what kind of man her father really is." Liam's breath hitched, his heart pounding in his chest. He could already see it, the look of disappointment, of betrayal in Maya's eyes. He wouldn't let her know this side of his life. She deserved better. She deserved the truth of his love, not the darkness of his past. "I will never let her know about this," Liam said, his voice steady, but fierce. "She will never have to carry the burden of your world. I won't let you destroy her." Elena's lips curled into a mockingly sympathetic smile. "It's already too late, Liam. Your father's past is your inheritance now, and your choices will shape her future." The words were a knife in his chest, twisting with cold precision. What choice did he have? The Morettis had him cornered, but then something inside him stirred, something stronger than fear, something older, something primal. The love for his daughter. It was the only thing that had kept him going, the only thing that kept him grounded in a world that had turned upside down, and it was the only thing that mattered now. The breaking point. The silence in the room grew heavier with each passing second, the weight of the decision pressing down on Liam like a boulder. His mind raced, thoughts tumbling over one another. How had he let it come to this? He had been so careful to protect Maya, to shield her from the world that had taken so much from him. And yet, here he was, facing the very thing he had spent his life running from. But then, something inside him snapped. Liam wasn't going to let Elena win. He wasn't going to become another pawn in this game. He had spent too long being manipulated, too long pretending his choices didn't matter. But now, with Maya's future on the line, he was done. He wasn't going to become like his father. He wasn't going to let history repeat itself. And in that moment, Liam made his choice. Turning to face Elena, his voice steady, filled with quiet resolve. "I will never be a part of your world," he said, his words firm and unyielding, "and I will do whatever it takes to protect Maya, even if it costs me everything." Elena's eyes narrowed. The faintest flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. For a brief moment, she seemed to hesitate, as if considering his words. But then, her expression hardened once more. "You think you can just walk away from this?" she sneered. "You think you can erase everything your father did?" Liam stepped forward, his face set with determination. "I can't erase it, but I can choose to be better than that. I can choose a different path for Maya and for myself." With a single motion, Liam grabbed the file and tossed it onto the table. The papers scattered, a chaotic representation of his father's legacy, but that legacy was no longer his to bear. He was done with it. The ultimate gamble. Elena stepped a step back, her expression darkening. "You've made a terrible mistake, Liam. You don't realize how deep you're in. You're too far gone to walk away now." Liam stood tall, his heart racing but his mind clear. "I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of your threats. If I have to burn every bridge to keep Maya safe, I will. I won't let you control me." The room was still, the tension thick as a knife. And then the door opened. It was Maya. The young girl stepped into the room, her face pale with concern, her small frame trembling slightly from the fear of the unknown. She had been waiting outside, uncertain of what was happening within, but now she had come to find her father. The moment her eyes met his, Liam's heart swelled with love and determination. This was it. This was what he was fighting for. "Maya, you shouldn't be here," he said softly, his voice a mixture of fear and love. But Maya shook her head, her small hand gripping the doorframe. "I want to know the truth, Dad. I want to know what's going on." Liam's heart ached as he looked into her eyes. She deserved a life free from the darkness that had consumed his. She deserved to grow up in a world full of light, of love, of hope. And no matter what it cost him, he was going to give that to her. "Sweetheart," he began, kneeling down to her level, "I'm going to fix this, I promise. I'll protect you." Elena watched the exchange with a look of disdain, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're a fool," she sneered. "But you'll learn. You'll learn that there are no promises in a world like this." Liam's gaze never wavered. "I'm done listening to you." In that moment, he realized something powerful. His moral compass hadn't failed him. He wasn't a puppet, and he wouldn't allow his father's past to define him. His choices had meaning, and it was time to take control of his future. The final choice. The room felt alive with electric tension. The final decision had been made, and Liam knew that his life would never be the same. His journey had come full circle. He had faced the darkest corners of his past, and now he was choosing to walk toward the light. But Elena wasn't done yet. She wasn't about to let him go so easily. "You can walk away, Liam," she said, her voice thick with menace. "But you'll never truly be free. We'll find you, we'll take everything from you, and when we do, you'll wish you had never made this choice." Liam stood tall, his heart racing but his mind clear. "I've already made my choice," he said, his voice steady with resolve, "and I'm ready to face whatever comes next." As the Morettis backed away, their threats hanging in the air like a storm cloud, Liam turned to Maya. This was the beginning of something new, a new fight for their future. And no matter what came next, Liam would never back down. The lesson from the story. At the heart of this story lies a powerful lesson, a lesson about the strength of character, the importance of making difficult choices, and the unwavering commitment to protecting what truly matters. Liam's journey is one of self-discovery, sacrifice, and moral struggle. He is faced with an impossible situation, torn between the dark legacy of his father and the need to shield his daughter Maya from a world that has already claimed too much. One of the key lessons we learn through Liam's experience is that our past does not define who we are or who we must become. His father's mistakes, the debts, the dangerous world he was tied to could have easily consumed Liam. But instead of succumbing to inherited guilt and shame, Liam chooses to break the cycle. He doesn't allow the sins of his father to determine his future or the life he will build for his daughter. In a world where darkness often feels overwhelming, Liam's decision to choose light, to protect his daughter, to follow his own moral compass, to resist becoming part of a destructive system, offers a ray of hope. The story teaches us the importance of standing firm, even in the face of fear. Liam faces unimaginable pressure. He's given the chance to conform, to accept the dangerous world of the Morettis in exchange for survival. But despite the overwhelming odds, he doesn't back down. And that shows us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to make the right choice, even when fear is screaming in your ears. Furthermore, the relationship between Liam and Maya highlights the power of love and sacrifice. Liam's deepest motivation is to protect his daughter, to give her a life free of the burdens that have haunted him. His love becomes his greatest strength, and this bond becomes the ultimate driving force behind his choices. Ultimately, this story reminds us that no matter how dark the world may seem, we always have the power to choose our path, to protect those we love, and to rise above the shadows of our past. Bravery, integrity, love. These are the timeless truths that guide us, that define us, that remind us of the kind of people we aspire to be.